What is up, my brothers and sisters, my agents of respect? It's your boy TreJuanJohnson back with another episode of the No Disrespect But podcast. Before we get started, make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel. Always feel free to comment. Just please make sure you keep those comments respectful. And if you're want to support your favorite podcast, yours truly, the Cash App will be in the episode description. I ain't been getting nothing, but that's okay because it's optional. We good over here. But look. This one's going to be short, relatively speaking, from previous episodes because one, I'm pulling double duty tonight. Me and my boy Tay Visuals, we're going to be recording our Bayou Ballers podcast as well, kind of talking about the NFL draft, more specifically the New Orleans Saints, and then these NBA playoffs. So uh, you'll get some more in-depth stuff on that one. So we're going live around 7 something tonight. So be on the lookout for that. But look, I want to cover a couple of things. I also want to cover the New Orleans Saints, what I think about the draft picks, more specifically what I think about round 2 pick 40, or even round 1 pick 9, if you really want to be honest with Tyler Shuck and Calvin Banks respectively. And then want to kind of talk about maybe some teams I really was thrilled with. I mean, who did I think did really good drafting wise, and who did I think maybe had a little bit of a head scratcher. And of course, that's going to be the Cleveland Browns. So just bear with me with that. So let me start with Who Dat Nation, okay, with the Saints. Very shocking draft. There are a lot of folks on the inside that basically hit the first 2 picks, right? Being Calvin Banks, the offensive line. Some people had Josh Connerly from Oregon, I believe, going in that spot as well. And then Tyler Shuck being the guy in round 2. Now, of course, the Saints did some really other good draft picks, getting getting Devin Neal, running back out of Kansas. We knew that was a big need. You got or Jonas Sinker, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Safety out of Virginia, really good prospect. I like him. Guy is going to be a thumper for you, kind of a force. Maybe a little bit about what Will Johnson was for us last year, and we missed during those games that he was injured. And so getting that in a more youthful body, but guy that played a lot of football at Virginia, you're really excited about that, right? Then I think the rest are okay. I mean, obviously, I love Danny Stuntsman, linebacker, a guy that I think is going to contribute. I think the Saints did really well to the latter part of day 2. I mean, in day 3, I think they dominated day 3, to be quite honest with you. But here are a few things that I was disappointed in. And this is outside of the first 2 picks. I want to start with being disappointed in that we didn't necessarily attack the edge position the way I thought we would. Yes, we got Diggs out of Syracuse in the 7th round, but 7th round picks and their path to being on your roster and making and playing meaningful snaps, that's typically very slim. I thought there were a lot of good edge prospects. I mean, edge prospect in Donovan Ezaraku went 4 spots after we picked Tyler Shuck out of Louisville. Thought you had some guys like Jalen Walker available at the edge position, James Pierce Jr., who went later in the draft, later in the first round to the Atlanta Falcons when they traded up to get him. I thought you had some guys of that mold that you could have maybe gotten in the first round to really attack edge. I just felt like this was a very deep edge draft, and to pretty much not really come away with one in the premium pick territory, I thought was extremely disappointing for me. I think another thing was to come out of this draft without a pass catcher. Yes, Ted McMillan was off the board at 9, but I thought there were some guys that you could have got, in the 2nd round. Higgins was gone, Luther Burden was gone, right? But thought you had guys like Jalen Noel that you could have took a flyer on. Alec Ayomanar out of Stanford that you could have taken a flyer on, knowing that you needed an X position, a big body receiver to pair with Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed and free those guys up some. And obviously, you have Brandon Cooks. But when you look at the Saints wide receiver room, it looks pretty much the same. It looks like the Spider-Man meme with everybody pointing at each other. And I thought this was a deep draft, right? I mean, I didn't even mention the Nick Nash. Nick Nash is who went undrafted. Pat Bryant, who was drafted. Um, there were some big body guys that you could have found yourself getting between round 2 and round 4, and we just didn't do it. But for the most part, I think I like the latter part of the draft. I think you got um, I think you got a good again, you got a good linebacker in Danny Stuntsman, who I think can come in and arguably be a starter for you and definitely can be the heir apparent to Demario Davis, in my opinion, the guy that did well at Oklahoma during his time there, both in the Big 12 and in the SEC, their first year in the SEC last year. A guy that's going to be incredible against the run, which, look, we need. Our first third round pick out of Texas, big defensive tackle, 6'5", 300 something pounds, can take up space, but has a little wiggle to him in the pass rush game. So the Saints definitely, from a defensive standpoint, went out of their way to say, "Hey, our run defense will not be as god awful as it's been the past couple of years. We're going to start to restore some order and get back to what we used to do." So I did like that. I did love the Quincy Riley pick. I think you got your starting cornerback opposite Kool-Aid McKinstry, a guy that's kind of been locked down over at Louisville, has some size, has some height to him, has some size from a weight standpoint, can attack the ball. And so I'm looking forward to having, I mean, essentially two lockdown guys. I think, at that point, you got a guy, your two starting corners, what are second round and fourth round picks. And then, of course, Alontae Taylor in the slot, another second round pick. So showing that, there were some people that thought, hey, they're definitely going to attack cornerback. They could do it at 9 with a Jade Barron. They could do it at 9 with a Will Johnson, but they chose not to do that. But I do think they still went out to address the cornerback position. Remember, I told you guys before, hey, let's not focus on players so much all the time, but focus on the positions. And I think that rung true, right? We talked about a lot of offensive linemen. Our first pick was offensive lineman. We talked about a lot about quarterbacks. Second pick was a quarterback. We talked about a defensive tackle. Picked a defensive tackle. We mentioned a lot of linebackers and how to, boost that lineup. Drafted a linebacker. We talked about the need for a cornerback, need for a safety, right? Bunch of names were getting thrown out, but the positions really rung true as to where the Saints were trying to go. I think the only places we missed that, whether that be fans, media, insiders, all that stuff. I think we missed that was pass catcher. I think if you had to bet on one position that the Saints were going to walk away with in this draft, it was going to be a pass catcher. They were in position. I mean, obviously Tet's gone. They were in position for a Tyler Warren, a Colston Loveland. They were in positions, right, for Alec Yamanor, a Jalen Noel, a Jalen Royals, guys like that. They were in position to grab pass catchers, a Gunnar Helm, what's my guy, Harold Fanning Jr. So again, they were in a really good position to get pass catchers, and to not get one, that was a little disheartening. But you can only do so much, right, with the 9 picks you have, and so um, I think that's where I was most disappointed. And I would say is not coming out of this draft with a pass catcher, and again, not coming out with a true edge rusher. Yes, we got one in the 7th round, but is this guy going to get a certain amount of reps to really be behind the guys we have now and Granderson and Chase Young? Are they leaning on Isaiah Foskey to take that next step? Or are we looking at, like, how are we going to utilize Cam Jordan? Is he going to be utilized as an outside linebacker? I hope not. So you didn't have a true edge, a true outside linebacker. I want to stay away from the edge terminals. You didn't have a true outside linebacker. And so to not see that really addressed as much was kind of interesting. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do at pass catcher and edge going into camp, and even getting some guys that might get cut or who are some free agents still out there that we can bring to the team and compete. So I'm interested in what we do at pass catcher and edge over the next few months and well deep into training camp and stuff like that. But look, the best I can tell you about the first two picks of the Saints, I'd say underwhelming. I want to start with Kelvin Banks Jr., one of the best offensive linemen in this draft class. Um, and to get them at 9 was good. I think it's good value if you value him as a left tackle or even a right tackle. I think the issue for me, right, is you get a little fatigued. 10 of the Saints' last 12 first round draft picks have been in the trenches, whether that be offensive line or defensive line. Um, and what I think 3 of the last 4 years we've utilized the first round pick or an offensive lineman, an offensive tackle at that. And then you start to wonder, okay, what's the plan? And I think that was my issue with the Calvin Banks pick, is because there wasn't a definitive plan. If you guys recall, uh, when we drafted Andres Pete, when we drafted Rui, I'm about to call him Ruiz, still got basketball mind. When we drafted Cesar Ruiz, we knew right away what those guys were playing. Andres Pete gets drafted. Hey, he's going to come in. He's going to be our left guard, but he played left tackle in college. He can swing that if something happens. And that's exactly what he did. Cesar Ruiz played center 3 years in college, started at center, played a couple games in his career at guard. And what happens when he gets drafted? Because we had just drafted Eric McCoy the year before. So we're trying to figure out why the hell would you draft another center first round? Sean Payton comes to the podium and says, he's going to play guard. We drafted him to play guard. So you knew. You probably didn't like the pick, but you knew that there was a defined role for this young man, for these young men on our team, right? Same thing with Ram, I guess you could say. We knew he was going to be at right tackle. We played left tackle in college. We knew he was going to come in at right tackle. So those are 3 examples. With Banks, I think we felt a lot of, well, he's talented. He can play tackle. He can play guard. We want to get the best 5. Yeah, that's not really inspiring because what are we doing here? He's the 9th overall pick. He shouldn't be competing for anything. Where are we putting him? Is it he's going to be starting at left tackle, removing Talia Safuaga to right tackle, removing Trevor Penny to guard, and that's where he's going to compete because we declined his 5th-year option. We want to see if he can work at guard, and if he can't work at guard, then he has no future here in New Orleans. Or we're going to move Banks at guard. We feel like he fits the size, he fits the athletic profile. We feel that he has he's such a talented prospect that we can put him anywhere. He's going to be our left guard. That's where he's going. That would have made me feel much better about the pick. Now I have to wait. Now I have to go to camp, need to see where they line up, need to see the amount of times you line up at a certain spot, need to go through preseason games, need to see where they put you in preseason games. And then I'll figure out if we got our value for that pick. And I will say this: if he's not playing tackle, to pick him at 9 was a bad pick. Like there were a lot of true offensive guards in this draft that you could have gotten later. Or you could have traded back and got more picks and more capital and all these types of things. But if he's going to be playing guard, it's a wasted pick, in my opinion. But hell of a player, hell of a talent. We just don't know what he's doing. You'd be like, oh well, he's clearly going to play left tackle. Is he? Is he? Like we don't know that because and it would have been nice to have known that within the presser. Like some things you don't need to code and keep it secret. What's your plan for this? He's our first round pick. I don't need any whispers and hush hush about how we're going to utilize our first round pick. You need to have that already understood. You come to the camp, hey, we drafted him to be our left tackle. Hey, we drafted him to be our right tackle. Hey, we drafted him to be our left guard. And we move on from there. That's what it is. We don't need to be guessing what our first round pick is going to be doing. That's insane. As bad or terrible as the Penning pick was at that time, we knew he was coming in to be the left tackle. People talked about guard and all that type of stuff, but no, it was pretty clear he's going to be the left tackle. We understood that. To not know, to have to assume where Calvin Banks is going to be lining up by week 1 of the season, that's not a good place to be for a first round pick. This was a year, and look, I rocked the Reggie Bush jersey. I rocked the Bush jersey. Shout out to Reggie Bush, because I felt that this was the most important draft since that draft. And in that draft, you could have went Vince Young, could have went Matt Leinart, right? But you went Reggie Bush. You went the best player on the board. We knew he was a guy that had the popularity. He was a guy that was going to put butts in seats, and we could do a lot of great things with him. And we did. He helped us win a championship, right? He did his part, in my opinion. There's a lot of mixed reviews on the Reggie Bush era, but I think he did his part. I think he did what we needed him to do. He restored hope. I think he was a big part of a championship locker room and the team that ultimately did win the Super Bowl. So that's how I felt. And at the 9th pick, there was a lot of discussions, especially in the Saints room. Are we going best player available? Or are we going quarterback? And I think what sucked at the 9th pick was that we didn't do either. I think there were much better players, right, than Calvin Banks available at 9. You could have went Tyler Warren. Could have went Colston Loveland. You could have went Walter Nolan. You could have went Jalen Walker. You could have went Jahad Campbell, right? You could have went Matthew Golden. Like, I think there were a lot of players, right, that were still better. At least I would have had higher on my board than Calvin Banks. But Calvin Banks fit a need, so to speak, even though what exactly is the need, because you don't know where the guy's playing. Everybody's like, oh, well, Penning sucks. Well, he improved drastically last year, moving from left tackle to right tackle. And he's still somebody that you traded 2 picks to get in the first round, 2 first-round picks to get him. So if he showed an improvement, would you not want to continue trying to mold that, right? So if you picked Calvin Banks to replace Penning, you essentially probably wasted 3 picks. The 2 picks you put in the Penning and the pick you just put into Calvin Banks, who we don't know, or where we don't know he's going to play. And he wasn't the best, in my opinion. He wasn't the best player available. I think there were better defensive players available. I think there were better offensive players available, especially people that scored touchdowns, right? That you could have picked over him in that 9th slot. And you clearly didn't go quarterback there. Thought of Shadur Sanders was on the board. Thought of Jackson Dart was on the board. Jalen Milroe was on the board. And all these guys were on the board. And even Tyler Shuck was on the board and talks about being a 9th overall pick, which I guess is a good segue, because had he been picked at 9, I would be even more pissed than I was when he was picked at 40. And let's go there. Okay. First and foremost, again, it's not Kelvin Banks or Tyler Shuck's fault where they were drafted. And I want to make it known that it's not necessarily that I have a gripe with them. I have a gripe with the organization. I have a gripe with my client, Kellen Moore, in terms of what was available. Why? Trenches, I get it, even though I thought there were better trench players, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But if you're an offensive guy and you want to go offensive line, I cannot say that there was a better offensive lineman on the board than Kelvin Banks, because there wasn't. But there wasn't a better offensive tackle. I think there was a better offensive guard. That guy went 3 picks later to Dallas Cowboys. So if you're going to put Calvin Banks at guard, then I'm having an issue, because there was a guard that went 3 picks later that's better, because he's an actual offensive guard. But anyways, my gripe with the Shuck pick was, one, for me, I could name 10 quarterback prospects in that draft before I mentioned it. I get it. Age. A lot of people talk about the age. Oh, he's 25. He's going to be 26 when the season started. That's the same. No. It's injuries for me. I think it's the amount of time he was in college. And I think the lack of production in that time. All we're really banking on is that His 1 year in Louisville is what we're going to be getting and what we want to be in the franchise quarterback. And for those who watch the games, I'm not talking about highlights. I'm not talking about clips. None of that. If you had him in your top 50, I think you're insane. Like, that was not a top 50 product. A team that just had Jack Plummer as their quarterback, that had just made it to the ACC title game a year ago. There were stretches where they would take the ball out of his hand. The times they had to put the ball in his hand was because he put them behind the 8 ball into double-digit leads, and they had to get into shootouts. And so the numbers at the end of the games looked much better because, well, we got to throw the ball. We got to put the ball in the air because we're down. And we're down because we have a guy that's turning the ball over or making questionable throws to where we're punting and putting us behind the 8 ball. And Louisville already had a bad defense. So you were compounding mistakes. So he wasn't, in my opinion, a really good prospect, just talent wise. And when every time you heard him, oh, well, he's 6'5" and runs a 4.6. Well, I'll put it this way. He didn't put the 4.6 to use on film. He didn't put the 4.6 to use in the stat column because he's not a mobile quarterback. He's a quarterback with mobility, and that's a stark difference. A mobile quarterback, your Jalen Milrose, your Jalen Hurts, your Lamar Jacksons, guys like that. Your quarterbacks with mobility thing, maybe a Matt Stafford, and I'm trying to mention all the high level guys, right? A Matt Stafford, a Joe Burrow, right? Those are quarterbacks with mobility. But he just wasn't as good. And you guys know my personal bias with senior citizen quarterbacks. If you're going to be the old guy in the room, you need to look like a man amongst boys. And there was never a time where Tyler Shuck looked like a man amongst boys. He just looked like a guy. And 7 years in, 5 years as a starter, you should not look like a guy. And that doesn't always mean it's going to be anything. Look, again, always my gripe with senior citizens is there is no development. There is no, they're going to start doing this thing now. There's no such thing. And I have yet to be wrong. Stetson Bennett, where is he? Back up. Mac Jones won Rookie of the Year, but guess what? He could not improve upon his rookie year because he was the same guy. Like, you're going to get what you get. And if you're telling me that my franchise quarterback is what I saw at Louisville and what I saw 3 years at Texas Tech and a COVID year at Oregon, I'm a little disappointed in that, especially with who was on the board. Jackson Dart was off the board because the Giants traded back up and got him. Shedeur Sanders was still on the board. Jalen Milroe was still on the board. Shedeur Sanders, a guy, again, who was a pipe dream. You didn't think you were going to get him. He interviewed like you weren't going to get him. And that was kind of where it was. But he was there. And he was a guy that, in my opinion, in comparison with Cam Ward, to me, those are the two guys that I felt like if they were your quarterback, they could start day one, especially if they were picked in the first 2 rounds, which in Shadeur's case, he was picked in the 5th round. So he's going to have a longer pathway to starting. But Cam Ward, first overall pick, I believe he had the tool set and the experience, right? That, hey, I can put him in there and figure it out and see what happens, right? I always felt like the Jackson Darts, Jalen Milrose, Kyle McCord, those guys, and even the Tyler Chucks, as his name was starting to get mentioned, those were guys that weren't necessarily ready to play yet full time, be my quarterback, right? Thought they could use 4 to 5 weeks into the regular season, ease them in, and then let it go. Especially a guy like Jalen Milroe, who with his running ability, you could utilize that, get him in the packages and things like that, which Seattle has confirmed that they are planning to do this year. And I think he'll end up being the starting quarterback before the year is over. But the Tyler Shuck pick was just underwhelming. And I know everybody's trying to talk about, piggyback certain games. I think on both sides, both the good and the bad, trying to piggyback certain games because guess what? They didn't watch the guy. They heard his name a couple weeks ago, most of them, and now they're trying to figure out, okay, how do I get some perspective on this pick and why? And while I don't like the pick, I still need to trust my head coach and his development. And at the same time, a 26-year-old, the development, we don't have the same patience level. Your fan base isn't going to have the same patience level. The locker room isn't, and that front office isn't. Like if Tyler Shuck does end up becoming the starting quarterback of the Saints this year, and he does terrible, or he's not as good, he's just okay, and we're not expecting the Saints to win a lot of games this year anyway. Well, if we're in position to draft a quarterback next year, we're going to do it because second round pick, there's not as much investment. Had he been picked in the first round, 26. Now you're going to be going 27 in your second year. Yeah, if there's a 21, 22-year-old that we can get in, we're probably going to do that, right? That's just kind of the way. NFL, not for long, is what it stands for. And I think, you know, when talking about the quarterback position, we were like, okay, what is Kellen Moore eventually going to appreciate more? Because for anybody that had a brain, they knew the quarterback position was going to be his decision. It wasn't going to be Michael Loomis weighing in. It wasn't going to be Jeff Ireland weighing in terms of saying, hey, no, we're going to go with this guy instead of what you want. It was going to be, who do you want, Kellen? And Kellen Moore decided that he wanted a Herbert guy. He didn't want a Dak Prescott, which I think a Shadur Sanders maybe fits that mold. A level of mobility, but you really can rely more on his arm, especially as time goes on. And you saw that in Dallas. Dak didn't take a dive as a passer with his severe ankle injury that took away the type of runner he was. So you didn't want that, and you want the Jalen Hurts type, which Jalen Miller would have fit. And the crazy part about it is your organization spent 2 years scouting Jalen Milroe. They kind of scrambled to scout Shadur Sanders because it started to look like he was actually going to fall. But they also did their work on Tyler Shuck, among many other quarterbacks. And when your head coach says, I want that guy, I see the things that I like in a quarterback the most in him, well, Tyler Shuck fits that. And so now it's up to Coach Moore to make it happen. You got to develop the guy. And should there be a quarterback competition? I say no, because we're going to spend a top 50 pick on a quarterback. You got to put him in the game. But quarterback, we've seen first rounders, we've seen top 10 picks not start the year. And in my heart of hearts, I haven't asked this, but y'all best believe I will. I'll ask and get information on this. But will there indeed be a quarterback competition? I think the issue is when you drafted Tyler Shuck, Derek Carr immediately said, "Oh, I don't have to leave anymore." They're not excited about this pick. I can step in and just be me. And did you hear the sermon this past Sunday? He has every intention on doing that. They're getting their answers. And their answers for a guy who's willing to play at 70% is if he can play at 70%, he's going to be playing at 70%. And so that puts not just Tyler Shuck's development at risk and an opportunity, but that puts Spencer Rattler's development at risk and an opportunity to be the guy and give us an idea of, can we move forward with the quarterback position? And yes, they will give these other guys every opportunity to surpass Derek Carr. But if they ain't doing it, especially if Tyler Shuck's not doing it, at the end of the day, the coaches want to win games. Yes, we are in a rebuild, but rebuilding does not mean losing. They want to win. Like, do you think Kellen Moore wants to hear, I can't believe you left the Eagles for this dump for a 5-win season or less or something like that? No, he doesn't want to hear that. He wants to show that, hey, I can turn it around. I can take a crappy situation and turn it into a 10-win season, a la Sean Payton. That's what he wants to show. That's what he wants to prove. And he should. So he's going to do everything it takes to win games. If that means Derek Carr is the starting quarterback, then that's Derek Carr. If it means Tyler Shucks is starting quarterback, it's Tyler Shucks. If it means it's Spencer Rattler, it's going to be Spencer Rattler. But for now, that's just my opinion. I need to get more information on that. But what I know about the coach, what I know about the mindset of the guys he's brought into his building on his staff, what we know about our own organization and how they still want to compete for this for the South, which is still fine because I feel like they've still done moves from a rebuilding aspect that show that they're into a rebuild, but that doesn't necessarily mean they want to lose. But I wish Tyler Shuck, I wish Kelvin Banks the best. I wish all these draft picks the best because we need them to show out. But I will say this: we did dominate. I think we dominated day 3 of the draft in getting some key folks. But then you got a safety in Sanker that can come in and play right away. Then you got Danny Stunsman in linebacker that can come in and play right away. You got Devin Neal who can come in and play right away. Like we did really well in terms of getting players on the back end that can come in and contribute. I think, but everything's going to be graded on the first 2 picks, and more so the quarterback pick than even the Kelvin Banks pick, because you screwed up enough times at the trenches, right? To where we'll just chalk that up to you being you. But you can't screw up the quarterback position when you invest that high of a capital in it. So overall, I think as it stands right now, I mean, because I'm not a fan of the quarterback pick, because I'm still puzzled by the offensive line pick, because I was not given as a fan a direction of where Calvin Banks would be. I have to assume. I'm gonna say C minus right now is where I'm at, and that's being gracious. I really wanted to give him a D, but I'll give him a C minus for now. But a lot is contingent on where does Calvin Banks end. I think if they say, okay, Calvin Banks is going to be one of our tackles, left tackle, right tackle, I'll move it to a C plus. And I think if Shuck ends up being a day 1 starter and plays okay, like plays relatively well, I'd move that to a B. Like, I mean, if he just totally bombs, he's the worst prospect we've ever seen. Then now I'm dropping you to a D. But you're going to at least be in the C range until I really start to see what these guys can be. Knowing that the top 2 picks, regardless of how well we've done in that back end, they're going to dictate how we're viewed and how this draft of New Orleans Saints is viewed. Just want to touch on a couple things of who I think did really well in the draft, but I think did bad. Let me say bad. I think Cleveland. What the hell? What were they thinking in there? You trade the second over, like what did you tank for? You trade the second overall pick when you have a chance at Travis Hunter, a guy that can impact you on both ends of both sides of the ball, offense and defense, a guy that's box office. Um, why don't you get him? You trade him. Now, granted, you got a first round pick for next year out of it, so it's a little bit of a win. You get Mason Graham, who's a phenomenal defensive player, the phenomenal defensive prospect on paper and what we've seen during his career in Michigan, and you're hoping he'll parlay that to the NFL. But Travis Hunter was right there. Like when we're talking about player for player, I think Travis Hunter and what he can do will far outweigh what Mason Graham can do for that defense. Um, and so you missed there. Then you draft 2 running backs. For what? Why? Why? You still need pass catchers. Like Jerry Jeudy is your only wide receiver. Why would you draft 2 running backs? Like that made no sense to me. Then you drafted 2 quarterbacks, and you drafted Dylan Gabriel 50 spots before you drafted Shadur Sanders, who's the far better prospect. Like, what are we doing here? So now you put yourself in a situation where, look, Joe Flacco's making a team. He's probably going to be your starting quarterback going into the year, right? In my opinion, because Deshaun Watson out for the year with the Achilles. So there's a chance, and you traded for Kenny Pickett. So there's a chance that you either wasted draft capital trading for Kenny Pickett, which you really didn't need to do. I don't know why you did that. knowing that you wanted to go into the draft getting a quarterback, having no idea why you would trade for Kenny Pickett. Um, but you did that, so you wasted draft capital there. You used a third round pick on Dylan Gabriel, who wasn't a third round prospect. And then 2 rounds later, you draft Shedeur Sanders, who's a better prospect. So he's probably going to kick Dylan Gabriel's ass in practice and in camp and into the season. So that's a third round pick you wasted that you could have used on a wide receiver. Then Kenny Pickett, and then you'll probably beat out Kenny Pickett. So again, that was draft capital you wasted. And then you have Joe Flacco, right? And here's the thing: Joe Flacco's 40 years old. He may start the year, but I don't know if he's going to finish. So your fifth round pick may very well be your starting quarterback. You spent 2 picks, including the second rounder, on running backs, knowing the running back situation just in the history of the position. Why would you use 2 picks on a running back? Like, what y'all gonna run, like the wing T or the I formation or something? Like, you're not gonna get the bang for your buck there. And then you just get like you walk out of this with like not a real pass catcher to go along with Jerry Jeudy. Like you drafted 2 quarterbacks. Who are they gonna throw to? You drafted 2 running backs. How are they gonna have holes to run when nobody believes that you can pass on? I don't know. I just think Clint. I think and you missed out on Travis Hunter. I think who's the best player in this draft. I don't know. I don't see the vision. I mean, your owner had to come in and say, "Why the hell is Shedeur Sanders still falling?" And you haven't gotten him, so it made you look incompetent, uh, Andrew Berry. To be quite honest with you, as a general manager, so I just didn't like. I don't know the direction that Clemson thought. I keep saying Clemson, and I don't know why. Maybe because I have Deshaun Watson on my mind. I have no idea where Cleveland thought they were going. I don't know what their direction was. So I I I did not like their draft at all. Whose draft I like that isn't the Philadelphia Eagles, because I love the Philadelphia Eagles draft, because how could you not? They're so good. These prospects that are really good just keep falling to them. So outside of the Philadelphia Eagles draft, um, I think I really like the Cowboys draft, and I like it for their first 2 picks. Was Tyler Booker a little bit of a reach? I think so. I think you drafting a guard at 12. It's a little bit of a reach. Then you get Donovan Ezeriku, and you pairing that guy with Michael Parsons. Donovan's probably one of the most polished uh, pass rush specialists in this draft. That was so good on them. No, Dallas, I don't think you're going to win your division. I don't think you're going to win the conference championship. I definitely don't think you're going to win the Super Bowl. But that was good. That was good to establish your trenches and do it right with 2 for sure prospects, at least on paper, and what we've seen in college. I think that was really good. I think I really liked Houston too. Now I would have liked them to address offensive line a little bit more, but they're doing the Cincinnati Bengals way. Who gives a damn who can block? If we got enough pass catchers that can catch the ball and we can get the ball out of our hands quickly, we're good. And they got the Iowa State boys. They got 2 big dogs at the wide receiver position. And you got Nico Collins. I can't remember my other guy coming out of that's going to be coming back for them from that knee injury. Like, it's insane what they were able to do at the pass catcher position. You have C.J. Stroud. Yeah, you hope they try to block for him because he took way too many hits. But I really just liked what they did. If you're not going to invest in the offensive line, invest in pass catcher. Like, you really need it there. That's probably why nobody else could go get wide receivers, because Houston and Tampa Bay were taking all the available wide receivers. So that's probably why a lot of teams walked away with no pass catchers. But I kind of like that model a little bit. But um, I think Cowboys and Houston, obviously Philly. I just think they were winners. I think they just won in so many areas, and getting really good prospects all across the board. Uh, I would have said Atlanta probably would have won, but to trade a first round pick to get James Pierce, I just think that was stupid. Hopefully that comes back to bite them. Um, I think Arizona did really good, right? You get Walter Nolan, decent tackle, forcing that front, and then you get Will Johnson in the second round. They have a defensive head coach, and you gotta build on that side of the ball. Kyler Murray on the offensive side is gonna have to step up. And I liked what they did. I liked what Seattle did. Um, you know, being able to get, you know, jump up in the second round and get Nick Amonwori, I think it's how you pronounce it. Sorry, safety out of South Carolina. Thought that was a good, really good pickup. Obviously, getting Jalen Merrill in the third round to develop behind Sam Darnold. Going to sprinkle in him in some packages. We saw how the Nepo baby, Clint Kubiak used Taysom Hill. I think you got I mean, Taysom Hill that can actually throw the ball. So that's going to be interesting to see how Seattle utilizes him. Um, So really, really good. But I would say it was some really good teams that I liked. But Cleveland, I think, was just the biggest head scratcher. Like I have no idea what they were doing. Um, Up until the Shadur Sanders pick, honestly. But anyways, the guys are here. All 32 teams, you got your draft picks. Love on those guys. Wish them the best. Hopefully they prove your organization right. Uh, And if you're one of the fans that dislike the pick, hopefully they prove you wrong. I sure as hell am praying that Tyler Shuck proves me wrong. But my eyes saw what they saw, and I can't get fooled again. Everybody tried to tell me what I saw from Derek Carr wasn't what I was seeing, and we're here now. I think we're going to see something similar from Tyler Shuck, but hopefully, Lord Slytherin, Spencer Rattler, my guy, hopefully he can right this wrong. Hopefully he can be our Brock Purdy, beat out the higher pick and the pedestrian quarterback, veteran quarterback that's bringing you nowhere. Even though comparing Derek Carr to Jimmy Garoppolo is probably a little bit disrespectful to Jimmy G. So I apologize, Jimmy G, for that. But you kind of get the gist of where I'm going with this. Maybe Spencer Rattler can be that guy for us. Or maybe they all can suck and we can just try to figure out the quarterback position again next year and actually do it right. Because you guys clearly didn't follow the numbers because I told you that once you let a quarterback out of the first round, they're typically going to suck. That's what history says. And if you take a sixth round pick and you draft them in the second round, odds are not in our favor. But we'll see. I will let you guys know going forward. We're going to be diving more into the NBA. Obviously, the WNBA season is starting. Trying to get more and more baseball content on this show. I watch baseball, but I'm not a baseball aficionado, and I need to get some more people to talk about that. But going to be talking a little bit less about football and the Saints in particular, because your boy need a break. It's been a long, 6 months? It feels like it's been a long time. I need to take a break from the Saints. Now I see y'all in the fall. So I'm gonna start muting some of y'all because I'm not trying to hear the narrative. Y'all already trying to act like Shuck is a top 15 player in the league right now. I don't have time for that. So we're going on a mutant spree. And I'll catch y'all in terms of football stuff close to the fall, especially as we start to get into college football season. But look, NBA playoffs are in full swing. WNBA season is about to get started. Uh, you know, we're getting into really starting to really get into the baseball season. So we're going to start trying to cover those topics. Remember, guys, tonight the Bayou Ballers podcast, me and my boy Tay Visuals, we are going to be recording. We're going to be talking about the Saints. We're going to be talking about NBA playoffs, and make sure y'all catch that tonight. So I'm going to upload this one in just a few minutes, and then make sure at about 7, a little bit after 7 Central Time, y'all catch me and my boy Tay on the Bayou Ballers podcast. But that's it for our show. You guys know how we end this thing. If there's anything that I said that offended anyone, look, it's a good thing, right? It's an opportunity for me to learn. And it's an opportunity for you to teach me. All I ask is that you keep it respectful. Peace.